Hello, welcome to The Rational Live. I'm your host, David Dole. Sorry I was a bit late today. I spilled a drink partially on my keyboard. So I had to clean that up, and I hope it doesn't mess up with the stream because that would really suck, but we'll find out. All right, so today, first, before I get to anything, first of all, hello. How are you all doing? If you want to support the show, therationalnational.com/join. That's the Patreon page. Link is below the video as well. You could also join on YouTube, send super chats. That helps out as well, and I'll respond to all of those throughout the stream, comments or questions. And other links below the video as well to support the channel. Of course, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notification icon, as YouTube, if you've followed me for a while, you're aware that YouTube, it's hard to find independent media on YouTube. So if you search up any news topic, you're not going to find my channel. You're not going to find even like Kyle Klinsky or Humanist Report. You're going to end up finding, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. It props up mainstream press, so hit the bell icon to know when our videos go live, and that helps us out quite a bit. All right, let me give you a little preview of what's happening today. My hair's in my face. Thank you for the compliment on the haircut. I appreciate it. I cut it a few weeks ago. I needed it. So, as I said last week, I'm not going back. I tried long hair because of the pandemic, and it's not happening. Sorry, there's a weird icon on my screen for a second that I have no idea what that means. But I think everything's fine. Okay. Let me preview today. So first up, I'll get to what's going on with Rand Paul. YouTube suspending him, and likely part of his motivation for spreading COVID misinformation. So I'll get to that story shortly. Also, as you see from the headline there, corporate Democrats are back at it. I'll let you know what that's about. And it's not surprisingly about Nancy Pelosi, or not really about Nancy Pelosi, as you'll see. So they are trying to impact the budget reconciliation bill, and I'll discuss all that when we get to it. Also, Marjorie Taylor Green goes on a tirade against objective reality. I'll get to that. It's just another, Marjorie Taylor Green being crazy, and a wild Fox News interview that they are just not even hiding how they feel now about the working class. So I'll get to that as well. And at the end, of course, the wrap-up segment, several stories here that I did not get to cover on their own, but I'll wrap them all up in a quick breakdown at the end. And then, of course, I'll get to whatever questions, super chats, and stuff are left. All right. Is there any Canada news today? Not today. So yesterday I put out a video on Trudeau calling, or likely to call, the election on Sunday. There'll be a lot. If you're Canadian, there'll be a lot more Canadian stuff on the run up to the election once it's called. I'm going to have people on, interviews discussing it, potentially candidates. We will see about that. And yeah, so don't worry. If you're Canadian, the Canadian stuff will be coming, but there's nothing, I don't think, even in the breakdown. There's one Canadian story in the breakdown, actually, or in the wrap up at the end. But otherwise, there's nothing really Canadian today. All right. Let me get to this first. There's a super chat. Let me get the super chat first. So, a couple super chats. Mr. Sir says, the deep state conspiring to destroy your keyboard. Nope, just me spilling a drink as I poured it into my glass. Lawn Gnomes says, seed money for a waterproof keyboard. That would be, they make those? I didn't know that. Also, Asteroid Bennu has a 0.00057% chance of hitting the Earth within the next 250 years. Are you worried? I'm more worried about the climate crisis than I am about that asteroid. I know you're joking, but I wouldn't worry too much about asteroids. Though, when I was younger, watching those documentaries back in the 90s about all these potential asteroids hitting the Earth, that definitely was my big fear when I was a kid. But now that we know about the climate crisis, it's kind of hard to fear anything else. All right. Also, a new member just joined. Thank you, Katie Lynch. Much appreciated. All right. This Rand Paul story. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off. Get to Rand Paul. After getting suspended from YouTube for 7 days over COVID misinformation, Republican Senator Rand Paul is in more hot water over an investment that may help explain why he's been spreading lies about the virus. So in this video, I'll get to my thoughts on the suspension, what Rand Paul's investment was, and ultimately the big takeaway from this story. So first, let's get to his banning, or not banning, his suspension, 7-day suspension from YouTube. This is from NBC. A spokesperson for YouTube told NBC News that the video violated company policy on COVID-19 misinformation, which includes, quote, claims that wearing a mask is dangerous or causes negative physical health effects, or that masks don't play a role in preventing the contraction or transmission of COVID-19. Quote, we removed the content from Senator Paul's channel for including claims that masks are ineffective in preventing the contraction or transmission of COVID-19 in accordance with our COVID-19 medical misinformation policies, a spokesperson said. This resulted in a first strike on the channel, which means it can't upload content for a week per our long-standing 3 strikes policy. Now, let me first before I give my thoughts on the suspension. Rand Paul, of course, reacted to this by tweeting out here saying, a badge of honor, left-wing cretins at YouTube banning me for 7 days for a video that quotes 2 peer-reviewed articles saying cloth masks don't work. So I'll get to exactly why his claim here is bullshit. But YouTube is not left-wing. I mean, if you follow actual left-wing media on YouTube, it's quite obvious that YouTube does not favor us. We are suppressed by the algorithm. You can't find our videos, even if you search, unless you go 20 pages deep. So they changed the algorithm around 2016, 2017 after the election back then because of all the fear-mongering around misinformation around that election. So since then, independent media on YouTube has been suppressed while the likes of CNN, Fox News, anything mainstream, anything corporate-backed has been lifted up in the algorithm on YouTube. And you can also see, even apart from that, YouTube does have a clear right-wing bias in the sense that it is biased towards anything reactionary. So that's why you see people like Dave Rubin or Tim Pool or Jimmy Dore, who clearly at one point were a little more on the left, have moved further and further to the right because that's where they know the audience is, or that's how the algorithm works. It benefits them to go further right. Now, let's get to some clarity on Rand Paul's mask claims. So this from Ross Story. Senator Paul insists cloth masks don't protect the wearer from contracting the coronavirus, but CDC guidance from day one has said the masks are primarily to protect others from the wearer. If everyone wears a mask, everyone is protected. So before you go any further on this, if you've been following any of this for the past year, again and again and again, the discussion has been that the mask largely protects other people around you more than it protects yourself. So Rand Paul claiming the mask doesn't protect you. No official guidance has not been saying that it does. The whole point is to encourage everyone to wear it. That way, everyone is protected. If you're talking to somebody who is wearing a mask, then you're more protected. But Rand Paul going off on claiming masks don't work when they have a clear purpose that's been obvious and made clear for a year now. But going on here, Ross Story says, on Monday, the New York Times published an op-ed by 2 medical professors who studied 1 million children and determined that next to vaccinations, universal masking is one of the most effective and efficient strategies for preventing COVID-19 transmission in schools. Children under 12 cannot be vaccinated, so masking is currently the best alternative, but it has to be mandatory. There you go. So if everyone in a school, all kids are masked, then it protects everybody. Now, let's get to, first of all, I guess my thoughts on the suspension here, and I really don't care. YouTube has a clear guideline around medical misinformation. If you're spreading lies like this that clearly only have a negative impact on society, then yeah, I have no problem at all with YouTube taking it down and giving you a strike. It is clear in their terms of service what you can and can't say about medical information, and this clearly would have Rand Paul's video here clearly would have a negative impact on society by spreading misinformation about masks. Now, getting on to just that this isn't new in terms of high-profile politicians being suspended, as Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has also been suspended or had a video removed on YouTube, or several videos removed on YouTube for being outspoken against lockdowns, vaccines, masks, and has promoted unscientific treatments. So Rand Paul isn't the only high-profile lawmaker to face a suspension on YouTube. But now, the other half of this story. Let's get to at least part of part of the reason why Rand Paul may have felt the need to continue spreading COVID misinformation. And that's because his wife bought stock in a company behind COVID treatment. So the more COVID patients in hospitals, the likelier it is that that investment pays off. So his wife bought stock in Gilead Sciences, the maker of remdesivir, a COVID-19 treatment. And his disclosure on that came 16 months after the 45-day reporting deadline set forth in the Stock Act, which is designed to combat insider trading. Now, quote here, the fact that he didn't disclose it and the investigations of other senators for possible insider trading related to COVID didn't trigger him to disclose it is very troubling. Walter Schaub, a senior ethics fellow with the Project on Government Oversight, said Thursday on CNN's New Day, adding that it wouldn't matter if Paul's wife made or lost money off the trade for it to be acceptable. So part of the defense here that Rand Paul's trying to make is that, well, my wife lost money anyways. I guess if she took her money out, but if her money's still in, she may still make the money back. So the shares have gone down a little bit, but it's not like this is clearly he should have reported this as it. Look, whether or not he realizes it, because it's not. It's one of these things where I don't know. I have a hard time believing that there are that many people out there that knowingly do terrible things. I think a lot of it is they convince themselves they are doing the right thing. They're still terrible people, but they convince themselves that they are actually doing the right thing. I think that's kind of what this situation is. I think Rand Paul, more than likely, subconsciously is being impacted by the fact that he's aware of this investment and the hopes of that share price increasing if more people are in hospital with COVID-19. Or look, you can't really make a judgment either way. I don't know. Maybe he did knowingly spread misinformation because he was potentially benefiting financially over it. Regardless, though, the actual impact here is what matters. So this is the larger picture. This is the big takeaway from the entire story. As Walter Schaub continues here, saying the story about Rand Paul buying stocks is really a story about members of Congress buying stocks. It shouldn't happen. They should buy diversified mutual funds like folks in the executive branch have to buy. What greed motivates members of Congress to say that's too restrictive? This is the obvious takeaway here. No member of Congress should be buying stocks. How can you be deeply involved in policy creation while investing in companies that may be benefiting from the very policies you're putting forward? It is clearly a gross misuse of power. They should not be able to do this. And Rand Paul, of course, isn't the only one. I've covered several stories. There's been other lawmakers, including Democratic Representative Tom Malinowski of New Jersey, Republican Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina, and of course, former GOP Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler of Georgia, who both lost the runoff races in January. But all of them had made big investments into companies related to COVID-19 in an attempt to try and make money off of the pandemic. One last tweet here. Charles Booker, who is potentially challenging Rand Paul if he wins the Democratic nomination next year, tweets out here that this is absolutely crushing news. More will be shared soon, but know this: Rand Paul must resign. So he's calling for Rand Paul to resign. Of course, Rand Paul's not going to resign, but Charles Booker, this is the guy to back for next year against Rand Paul. Let's hope he pulls out that nomination. But ultimately here, as Walter Schaub pointed out, this is a story about Congress people buying stocks. They should not be able to do so. All right. That's the Rand Paul story. Now, let me prep the next one. There's a generous super chat here. Thank you to the Dynamic Jab. Much appreciated. And let me prep the next story. I will be right back. I'm back. This is Teddy. Teddy over here. Bro be prepping stories during your streams. Is he a one-man operation? Damn right. I do everything. I got the switchboard in front of me. I have another one over here. I got everything going on. I do the editing. I do the researching. I do of course, the note-taking, the shooting, the hosting. Yeah, I'm a one-man band. That's what I am. Ryan Nowicki, with your chat cut off on my screen. Here it is. Ryan Nowicki says, if Trump gets prosecuted by states, do you think red states will add/change laws for the point of effecting influence of previous POTUS and elections? If Trump gets prosecuted by states, do you think red states will add/change laws to the point? We're going to have to cross that. We're going to have to cross that bridge when we get to it. I don't know the legality of what they could or couldn't do depending on if Trump's prosecuted or not. I doubt they could do anything. I mean, president is, a national figure. I don't know what they could really do to change that to help him still win states. We're getting way too far down the hole. I don't know. It's a good question. I just don't. I have no idea. But I would like. That's a question I would hope that we have to revisit later on. But I feel like based on just the way history plays out, people that are really shitty and bad tend to not face many repercussions. So we likely will not see Trump in jail, but that'd be nice. All right. Let me do this next story, which is the corporate Dems story. Everyone likes a good corporate Dems story, right? We all like that. Okay. 9 corporate Democrats are attempting to sink the $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation bill that expands Medicare, extends the child benefit, and addresses climate change, among other provisions. Now, this is the budget bill that is supposed to be paired with the infrastructure bill. Democrats in the House, progressive Democrats in the House, have said they do not want to see that infrastructure bill until the budget bill is passed. Again, the budget bill is the good one. The infrastructure bill is the private giveaway one. So progressives in the House are right to essentially withhold their vote unless they get this budget first. But now you have these 9 corporate Democrats coming out and saying that they want the opposite. So let me start first here with the headline, because this is its own story. You have here New York Times saying House moderates say they won't back budget vote until infrastructure bill passes. The letter from 9 Democrats, enough to block passage, threatens their party's 2-track plan to pass both a $3.5 trillion social policy budget blueprint and an infrastructure bill. Now, here's my issue with this headline. It really doesn't tell you what's at stake here. So on Twitter, and I'm using my tweet as it's easier than just doing this off the top of my head. But I tweeted this out saying, the alternate headline, 9 corporate Democrats aim to sink Medicare and child benefit expansion, kill any hope of much needed climate crisis policy. This is how you actually inform people about what's at stake. 9 Democrats here trying to sink the budget reconciliation bill that actually aims to help people and deal with climate change. But instead you get this mess of a headline that really doesn't tell you anything. And yeah, it doesn't. The average reader sees this and thinks, oh, this is looking at politics as a sport. Oh, look, these 2 sides are in a fight in the Democratic Party, as opposed to looking at what is the real world impact of this. That should be in the headline. Now, let me get to a little more here. So here is what is actually in the budget reconciliation bill. So a quick breakdown from Jeff Stein. Child tax benefit, universal pre-K, paid family and medical leave, tuition-free community college, lower prescription drug costs, dental/hearing/vision, Medicare expansion, housing, home care, major climate money, immigration, also lower Medicare age, Obamacare expansion, increasing physical supply. I don't really know what that means. And too many climate/clean energy plans to summarize here. And there's new revenue from beefed up IRS tax enforcement, looking or focusing more on the wealthy. So right now the IRS focuses largely on the poor and the middle class, which is completely insane. But here in this budget reconciliation plan would be more money for the IRS to actually focus on the wealthy, the actual people that steal from the government, and taxing the rich, taxing corporations, fees on polluters, and Medicare negotiations. So as you see here, this budget reconciliation bill would actually help people. compared to the infrastructure bill, which yes, it has some good provisions like money to replace lead pipes, but is also largely a giveaway to private corporations looking to potentially privatize things like roads that may institute tolls, which of course negatively impact the poor and the middle class more than the wealthy. Now, ultimately here, I think the progressives in the House should simply call their bluff. Call the bluff of these moderates, or not moderates, these corporate Democrats want to push back against this initiative for the budget reconciliation bill. Well, let's see what happens when they bring the budget bill up first. Because ultimately here, first of all, the important piece, more than half of the nearly 100-strong Congressional Progressive Caucus has taken the opposite position, saying they will not vote for the infrastructure bill until they have a social policy measure funding for their priorities: climate change, education, healthcare, family leave, childcare, and elder care. So we're seeing here about 50 members of the House in the Democratic Party versus 9. So 50 versus 9, I think we're going to see who wins this. Ultimately, Pelosi right now is still siding, thankfully, with the Progressive Caucus. So, and it's not because, I don't think it's because she actually cares about passing any of this. It's just because of the numbers. So she sees the numbers. She sees right now who has the power. 50 versus 9. I think it's clear who will likely win this fight. That said, if these 9 corporate Dems want to defy their own backers, then they can do that. Because ultimately here, part of the reason why this may actually pass, the budget bill may actually pass, is because corporations want the infrastructure bill to pass. And if you're tying the two together, well, to make corporations happy, you also have to make the general population happy with the budget bill. So if you want those corporate giveaways, if those 9 corporate Democrats want those corporate giveaways in the infrastructure bill, they're going to have to sign on with the budget bill as well. And I think they're going to eventually cave. I mean, 50 versus 9, plus the fact that they have the corporations wanting the infrastructure bill, I think eventually they will cave, but, we have to wait and see how it plays out. Last thing, though, these are the 9 and the people that Democrats, that progressives need to focus on in terms of primarying. So I know one of them already are being primaried, but here are the Dems that are standing against this budget bill. You have Philmon Vela, Henry Cuellar, Jared Golden, Vincent Gonzalez, Ed Case, Josh Gottenheimer, Carolyn Bordeaux, Jim Costa, and Kurt Schrader. So Henry Cuellar is facing a challenge from Jessica Cisneros. I did a video on that last week. Check it out. Cisneros is a fantastic candidate. I believe an immigration lawyer and or a human rights lawyer, and is a fantastic candidate. Ran last time, came so close to defeating Henry Cuellar, and I think this time she'll get it. But that happens next year. We'll find out. But there you go. So we will see who wins this fight, and ultimately, I think the progressives will win. But you have to have hope. You have to have hope in politics. Otherwise, what's the point? All right. Next, let me grab some of these chats. I feel a little hyped up today, a little more than usual. I don't know why. I had my regular 1 coffee. Didn't have any extra sugar, but I don't know. Feeling pretty good today. Teddy Ellison says, Eileen Wright, and enjoy your content. Hope your channel keeps growing. Wow. Thank you, Teddy. Maybe I'm getting through to you. But cool. Thanks for the support. All right. I will prep this next story and be right back. So I got this Marjorie Taylor Green video. Then after that, Fox News clip. And then I'll do the wrap up and take all your chats that I may have missed throughout the stream. I just saw a new one pop up. Let me grab this. Ralph Brennan says, thanks, David, for being a fun leftist YouTuber I can consistently watch. We love you for it. Thank you so much, Ralph, for the very kind words and the very generous donation. Thank you so much. Okay. Let me get to Marjorie Taylor Green. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Green went on Real America's Voice and spread some more bullshit about COVID and the vaccine. So I'm going to show you this clip and then break down her lies.
So this is concerning to me, and that's why I'm saying there's more research needed by the FDA before the FDA approves these vaccines. Because here's the problem, Anna. Once the vaccines are approved by the FDA, we are going to see the mandates for vaccines ramp up far more than they are right now. They're going to be mandated, and I fear they'll become law in some cities and some states. Biden would love to make it the law of the land, and I think that's completely wrong. Again, I'm not anti-vax. I am completely for people being allowed to make choices, medical choices for themselves and their families. And I don't think the FDA should approve a vaccine that it doesn't seem to be that effective, especially with COVID-19 raging all over the country. At least that's what the media tells us every single day. But I've talked to local hospitals here in my district and here in my state. Yes, the waiting rooms get full, but guess what? The waiting rooms are full of all kinds of things, not just COVID, some, car accidents, trauma, other illnesses, cancer, and so forth. But they're seeing about 30% of those numbers being COVID cases. So while the news tries to tell us the hospitals are slam-packed with COVID, that's just not the case. Everyone needs to get back down to common sense and remember that, we're human. We can't live forever. We are going to catch all kinds of diseases and illnesses and other viruses, and we get hurt sometimes. So I'm all for let's be rational with this. Let's be careful. Let's be cautious. And let's not turn into an authoritarian regime that forces shots in arms of people that don't want it.
All right. First of all, apologies to your ears. Hearing that lady go on for almost 2 minutes there can be disturbing. But what a roller coaster ride that was. So here's just a quick summary of some of what she said. Basically saying that the vaccine needs to be approved, and then once it's FDA approved, they're gonna call for more mandates, and then the FDA shouldn't approve it. So the vaccine should be FDA approved, but then once it's FDA approved, they're gonna call for more mandates, and then she says the FDA shouldn't approve it. So she's already moving the goalposts before the approval. Now, to be clear, the FDA has approved the vaccine for emergency use. I mean, this is not. Actually, before I even get to that, let me show you the fact that the U.S. The FDA has now authorized a third shot of COVID-19. So they've approved it for emergency use authorization. So this is the FDA's approval without the full approval. So the full approval requires more time. That's why there has not been a full approval of the vaccine. It simply requires more time, which they will get to, and they will approve it. So it's been approved now for a third shot by the FDA through emergency use authorization. So to claim that the FDA hasn't approved it is just a complete lie. So let's get also to the idea that people that are vaccinated are spreading COVID-19. The unvaccinated people are ones that are driving the COVID-19 surge. So these are coronavirus cases in states reporting breakthrough infections, share of cases among fully vaccinated people, and share of cases among those not fully vaccinated. So, unvaxxed, vaxxed. You can see here who is driving COVID-19. The people that are unvaccinated. It is quite clear, this is every state, it is quite clear they're the ones that are driving COVID-19, driving the Delta variant. The Delta variant right now is incredibly contagious. And in many cases, even if you have the vaccine, yes, you can get it, but your symptoms are a lot less. In most cases, some people that report like a mild flu, you largely don't end up in the hospital. The ones ending up in the hospital, 98 to 99% of people ending up in the hospital are unvaccinated because they are facing severe symptoms from COVID-19, especially with the Delta variant. So to claim that the vaccinated are spreading COVID-19 is complete bonkers. Also here, in terms of hospital beds, so she claimed there that hospital beds, sure, they're full, but not because of COVID patients. Well, that's not what the experts and people that are working in hospitals are saying. All the beds are taken up by COVID victims. Hospitals in the South are running out of space or staff, and it's even getting to the point where children's hospitals are filling up. So almost half the country is not fully vaccinated, including children under 12 who are not yet eligible but are still vulnerable to COVID-19. And ultimately, this is why I still care about this issue and misinformation around the vaccines and COVID-19. It's because of kids 12 and under can't get vaccinated. So any of these children that are in a space, whether, largely indoors, it's more dangerous, but even outside in a public space around people who are unvaccinated, who have COVID-19, these kids can't get vaccinated. So they can contract the virus from these unvaccinated people because it is incredibly transmissible. And we are seeing that it's even affecting kids to the point that, or to a larger degree than it was a year ago. Again, because of the new variant. And the more space we allow for COVID-19 to spread, meaning the less people or these large pockets, especially in the South, and of course other countries that don't even have access to the vaccines. These pockets where COVID-19 is spreading, at the same time it's also mutating. So we may potentially get to a point where we have mutations of COVID-19 with new variants that may render the current vaccines ineffective. Now, I think that would take some time. But you give it enough space, you give it this breathing room to grow and mutate, then you're eventually going to get to that point. That is why it is so important to vaccinate as many people as possible, including around the world, because then there's the potential that people in other countries will come over and spread a new variant to North America, Europe, or whatever. But that's why I also discussed the need for the TRIPS waiver, which would allow the mass production of vaccines on a global scale that would be able to meet the demand that other countries have right now. But you have right now Canada, Germany, and the UK standing in the way of the TRIPS waiver. Surprisingly, Biden signed on and is okay with it now when he wasn't before. But you still have Germany, Canada, the UK, and I think one or two other countries, major countries, standing in the way of the TRIPS waiver that would allow the vaccine to be mass produced and spread globally. But there are all these issues going on. At the very least, we have to get the COVID information right. We have to correct this misinformation, correct these lies. Yes, masks work. Yes, the vaccines work. People ending up in the hospital are, by and large, unvaccinated. Even if you get COVID-19 with the vaccine, your symptoms are lessened because of the vaccine. The data's out there. It's obvious. So if you have the ability to get the vaccine, ensure you are vaccinated. All right. I can't wait for the day that everybody I can't wait for the day where we were at a point where COVID-19 is essentially unable to continue mutating. And as I'm saying that, I am reminded that we may never get to that day, considering how many countries don't have the ability to right now get the vaccine. All right. Let me get to an insane Fox clip in just a second. Going to grab some chats here. Nanette Snowden, thank you for becoming a member. Much appreciated. Also, Junior McGraw sent a chat. Let me find it because it cut your text off. Junior McGraw says, you mentioned how YouTube favors right-wingers, and I would also like to point out whenever I look up a left-wing channel, I get ads for Daily Wire hacks. And when I watch videos, I get PragerU ads. So no, YouTube is not a left-wing site. Exactly. That's another big piece of it, is the advertising. I have never in my life, so TYT I would say is the largest network, progressive network on YouTube. I've never come across a TYT ad. It's possible they buy ads on YouTube. I've never seen one. I don't think they buy ads. because they don't have the capital to do so. Well, meanwhile, places like Daily Wire, PragerU, they have unlimited money from, these massive billionaire backers. So they flood the airwaves with their ads, including on YouTube. And that's also part of the reason why Ben Shapiro is #1 on Facebook. So, I mean, anybody claiming social media has a left-wing bias doesn't know anything. Ben Shapiro every week has the top performing videos. There's like a list of 1 to 10. He's usually at least half of the list because he spends a ton of money on Facebook ads. And that pays off. When you spend that money on Facebook ads, you get the views coming in. So people that have the money have the ability to purchase ads, whether on YouTube, on Facebook, or social media in general. They are benefiting immensely from those ads. And of course, the left doesn't have that unlimited capital the way that the right does. So we don't have the ability to buy ads. But it is, these platforms are skewed to the right, not only through the algorithm, but also through advertising and the fact that it benefits, massive capitalists. All right. Sorry, I see 2 more chats here. I may have missed that. Throwing Back the Apple says, "What's up, David? What do you think of Adolph Reed? Have you read any of his work? Thanks, and keep up the great work." Didn't Michael Brooks interview him? I'm not all that familiar with Adolph Reed, to be honest. If you asked me a year ago, I may have been more familiar, but I have not kept up on it, so I can't give you a good opinion on that. Michael Cuomo says, "Can you guys take back Alaska?" Hold up, it's cutting off your chat. Let me find it. It says, "Can you guys take back Alaska? Hey, Dave, I know you're very influential in Canada. Am I? It can make it happen. We put DC or Puerto Rico in their spot." I don't know if we want Alaska. That may influence how these elections go. Then again, if Alaska gets a taste of single-payer healthcare, it may change their opinions on politics. Who knows? But I don't know. I know one thing I do know is I don't have the power to do that. But I appreciate your comment and thinking that I have that kind of power. All right, let me prep this next story. I will be right back. All right. Before I do this next story, I just want to touch on the Adolph Reed question, as yes, I was right. Michael Brooks did talk to Adolph Reed several times. Here's one of the interviews, so check out any of his discussions. I know I enjoyed them. I can't tell you any details of those discussions, but I know I enjoyed them and learned quite a bit at the time. All right, and really, there's a massive void left by Michael Brooks that nobody really has been able to fill, and part of it is because, I mean, he was so well connected, so well read that it's hard to compare to the body of work that Michael Brooks put out. All right, let me get to this story. Fox News host Laura Ingraham had on John Taffer of Bar Rescue, a TV show, where he floated a new and innovative way to whip workers into action. Check out this absurdity.
John, I want to ask you, though, about this idea of work-life balance. Because look, no one wants to miss their kids growing up. No one wants to. You stay in the office your whole life. You never see your family. So that's really important. However, have we taken that a step too far when you think of, well, a lot of the millennials talking about, oh, I need time for self-care. I don't know why I'm harping on that tonight, but the whole self-care movement is a little, I mean, my mother is not with us anymore, but she worked by the time she was 12 during the Depression. If she heard the self-care thing, I think her head would explode.
I think that's right. I have a friend in the military who trains military dogs, Laura, and they only feed a military dog at night because a hungry dog is an obedient dog. Well, if we're not causing people to be hungry to work, then we're providing them with all the meals they need sitting at home.
Okay. Wow. Just, it's right out there. If we're not providing, so basically he's telling people, or he's saying, we should starve our workers so that they will be obedient and continue working for us. This is how the capitalist class feels about the average worker. Now, not everybody that runs a company, runs a business feels this way, obviously, but this is how they treat workers. So this is a guy who's, they're on discussing, he's worried about the fact that people are not going back to work, and it's largely because of low wages. So instead of helping people with a social safety net, they're arguing that we should starve them, cut off any benefits, cut off any, not even benefits, cut off any, help that is going to them through unemployment, for example, so that they starve and are forced to go back to work. It is completely psychotic. So, I just don't, I feel like I don't need to explain this. I don't know how anybody watches that clip and thinks he's making a good point, unless you are, one of those capital owners, unless you own a massive business and don't care at all about who works for you, the people that are actually creating the value, that are giving you the money that you're benefiting from. I don't know how the average person watches that and thinks that he made a good point. Yes, we should treat workers like dogs. Also, on the self-care, this is obviously less important, but Laura Ingraham going off on self-care and having an issue with self-care. Isn't the goal, the goal of society, for me anyways, is for progress, that we should improve society, which means, continued freedoms, improving daily life for the average person. And part of that, I think, is caring about your mental health, caring about your own well-being. So her talking about what her grandmother working till from being 12 till she died. Okay, that people shouldn't be that way. Like, that's not a society I want to live in. People should be able to enjoy their lives. So these people are able to have these or have these kinds of discussions, make these kinds of arguments because they are incredibly comfortable. Laura Ingraham has a massive team around her. She's able to go on just an hour a day, 5 days a week, do her show with a massive team that does all the work for her, then go home to her. I'm sure she has a nice condo or a home that she stays in, making millions doing this easy show. Like, they barely have to work. And these are the people that are complaining about people not wanting to work for starvation wages at $7 an hour. I would love to see Laura Ingraham or this moron, John Taffer, work $7 an hour for a year. See these two work $7 an hour for a year and see how they live. They'd be coming back on the show, begging for help. So this is just a completely bizarre world that I still don't understand how anybody watches this and actually thinks or actually agrees and thinks they're being educated on or educated through this crap. But it just shows you the psychotic world that these wealthy individuals in power have. All right. I think I fucked up at the end there. Psychotic world. I meant psychotic worldview, but whatever. All right, let me get to some chats. And there's also the wrap-up segment. I almost forgot. All right, I'll do the wrap-up as well. But I see some super chats here. Let me go through some of these. YouTube cuts off these chats. Here we go. Matt W says left going left and going left. Do you identify as social democratic left, or are you now a full anti-capitalist lefty of some kind? Solidarity, bro. Thank you, Matt, for the question. I'll be honest with you. I don't have any label for myself. Like I don't think about the news that way. I don't think about politics that way. The way I operate, I guess you can argue, is as a social democrat, as I operate as somebody looking for what is possible now in terms of what progress can be done now. So in that sense, I'm a social democrat, since that's sort of the next step on the way to going any further. But I just don't think in those terms. And as somebody that does this work, at least the way I do it, I don't think it's beneficial for me to label myself. I mean, I really am more of an educator, and so I consume the news. I try to break it down in a way that is educational and understandable for the average person. While also, throwing in discussions around capitalism and socialism and capital owners. So I do. As you just saw, I do dabble in that discussion, because it's important to understand who has the power and who doesn't. But in terms of what is possible now, or in terms of my focus in covering the news, I look at what's possible now. So that's why I would, I guess, consider myself right now to be a social democrat. But, if we were to progress any further, then that could change. All right. Let me prep the next story, and I will be right back. All right, this is the last segment today, and then I'll take super chats and some random normie chats, and then be on my way. Some fun chats out there right now. All right, I'll get to all that later. Here we go. It is time for the weekly wrap-up. These are stories that I collect throughout the week that I did not get to do a full video on, but I break them down really quickly through this video. So let's first start with this one from John Adirola tweeting this out, saying study finds rates of erectile dysfunction 3 times higher after COVID infection. So if there wasn't already many reasons not to get COVID and to ensure you are vaccinated, here is another one for the guys. So let's take a closer look, and has quite the visual here. Though I have to question the size of the group here. But let's look at, 3 times higher after COVID infection. So if there wasn't already many reasons not to get COVID and to ensure you are vaccinated, here is another one for the guys. So let's take a closer look, and has quite the visual here. Though I have to question the size of the group here. But let's look at what it says. So get your vaccines, guys. Prevalence of erectile dysfunction among male COVID patients relative to control group in Italian study. So 9% of men in the control group reported erectile problems versus 28% of men in the COVID positive group. So, I mean, what else do I have to say? Don't get COVID-19. It will impact your ability to perform. All right. Next story. There's going to be an election that is likely to be called on Sunday. And if you're watching this video outside the live stream, this is going up on Sunday. But this is something to think about. Canada flouting international law by continuing Saudi arms sales, report says. So I've covered this particular issue many times now. And they continue doing it. So this is going to be one of those things that are, it's barely going to be discussed in terms of the foreign policy discussion is almost, nada when it comes to Canadian elections. But maybe it'll be explored. But there's going to be, just really 30 days for this election. The election day is likely going to be September 20th. But this is something to think about, is Canada's foreign policy, the Liberal Party's foreign policy, and how it's been a largely disaster over Trudeau and over Liberals in general, over their entire reign. But that said, when we get to the election discussion, it's going to be Trudeau winning a minority or a majority. It just depends on which one it's going to be. But let's hope it's a minority, as that allows the other parties to get involved in the discussion and limits the power of the Liberals. Next, let's take a look at this clip from Katie Porter. So Katie Porter, of course, one of the fantastic Democrats in Congress. Let's check out this discussion she had with Public Citizen.
But if I get it right, the story you're saying is that oil companies are drilling on public lands, taking the oil out, then using a subsidiary or a front company or a shell company or whatever to declare bankruptcy, and then just leaving the well behind to just be a mess or to let the taxpayers clean up. Is that fair? And if that's right, then what does bonding have to do with it?
That's absolutely what it is. So the idea behind bonding is that you, the polluter, the driller, because there is no way to drill in a way that doesn't create some need for environmental remediation after you're done. The wells don't cap themselves, okay? You have to do the work. And so the idea is that you buy a bond, you basically put down, you purchase a bond, you put down a portion of the money, and the company says, if you don't pay for this, people can look to the bond to cover the cost. And what's happening is those bonding requirements are so low that it doesn't even begin to cover the costs of capping the well, of doing the environmental remediation, of doing the cleanup. And so what happens is one of two things, and they're both really, really bad for the American people. Either these wells sit abandoned, where they prevent both, potential risks of people wandering onto the land, getting harmed, the land is polluted, it can't be used. And that's a loss, an economic loss to the taxpayers, or the federal government, pick up the tab and do the work, or we put it onto the states. This is really simple for me as a parent. If you want to dump the bin of Legos out on the floor and play with the Legos, that's fine. You will pick up every single Lego. Every parent understands this. You want to make a mess, you got to pick it up. Same thing for the oil and gas companies. You want to drill, you need to clean up your messes. You can't just walk off and leave the rest of us on the hook. Everyday American people working hard, many of them making minimum wage, people paying taxes. Why are we on the hook for cleaning up after your profits? The mess you made to make a buck is your problem to clean up. That comes out of your buck. It should not be on the rest of us.
So that is one of the many ways that fossil fuel companies steal from the public, in addition to stealing our future. It is you would think the bare minimum that they should be responsible for cleaning up their own mess. And even that, the government lets them off the hook in most cases. Next up here, Nathan Bernard tweets out this incredible story, saying COVID denier dies of COVID after being red-pilled on vaccines, ivermectin, and natural immunity by medical quack YouTuber Brett Weinstein. So Brett Weinstein is one of these guys that, tries to be or pretends to be this liberal voice, but everything he does is conservative. So, example here, this is this guy died from COVID-19 after watching Brett Weinstein. So, headline: COVID-19 devastated families plea after death of lawyer who refused to get coronavirus vaccine. Leslie Lawrenson's family said he had a misguided belief that because he was in his 50s with no known underlying health conditions, his body could fend off the virus naturally. Well, let's take a look at what Leslie Lawrenson has been sharing before he died. People need to watch this. Red pilled on COVID vaccine. Dark Horse production. This is Brett Weinstein's podcast. He shared that on, looks like, Facebook. Why is this information being blocked? Big tech censorship on ivermectin. So again, this is the Dark Horse podcast. This is Brett Weinstein's podcast. And yeah, that guy died. So one more thing here. This is a tweet from Brett Weinstein. This has always been about life and death. I've been clear about that. COVID is a dangerous disease. I've said so often, but you can only imagine what follows that. So here's a guy that, again, I'm a liberal, but everything I do is conservative because that's where the money is. That's where the views are. That's where the eyeballs are. People are reactionaries. The algorithms work in our favor. So we pretend to be liberals while actually being on the right. And this guy, his bullshit ended up infecting this person's mind, and they died. This story. Police chief says officers, deputies fatally shoot military veteran. Left flank veterans on that story says he called the suicide hotline, said if cops show up, there will be blood. So cops showed up and killed him within 20 minutes. This is why I discuss defund the police. Move resources, which means, the way I'm discussing it, move resources away from the police and put those resources into other areas, like mental health care professionals, who should have been the ones to show up to this call. But instead, cops showed up and killed this military veteran who was going through a mental health crisis. Absolutely disgusting. Last thing here, Republican Josh Hawley, who is just so insufferable, and you'll see why in this clip. Here he is discussing the infrastructure bill and never actually manages to say anything.
It's not really about infrastructure at all. It's about woke politics. Why is President Biden so enthusiastically for it? Because it advances his far. It's not really about infrastructure at all. It's about woke politics. Why is President Biden so enthusiastically for it? Because it advances his far left agenda. The Green New Deal, elements of it across this bill, the climate change agenda, it's stuffed into this bill, quotas for this, that, and the other in this bill. So this is a bill that is about the woke political agenda of the left. It is being paid for with this massive pork barrel spending. And I just hope Republicans will open their eyes to what's actually in the bill. You know, when you get a bill this late in the process that's 2,700 plus pages long, sometimes it's tempting not to actually look and see what's in the bill. Folks should look and see what's in this bill. I think it's going to be awfully hard to explain to Republican voters that we have gone along, or some Republicans have gone along with this kind of an agenda, this sort of a social agenda, this kind of pork barrel spending. And so I think it's absolutely vital that Republicans take a principled stand and say we're not going to be part of Joe Biden's left-wing agenda. We're not going to advance his woke political agenda. We're going to stand up for the principles that we share and believe in as Americans. We're going to stand up for some basic fiscal responsibility. And for those reasons, we're going to vote no on this bill. Thanks for having me.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that's how you say absolutely nothing at all. Minute 14. Said nothing. Woke, spending, Green New Deal, left-wing agenda. Didn't mention what's in the bill. How a lot of it, in terms of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, is largely a corporate giveaway. The ability for companies to potentially privatize roads and put tolls on them. So this is why you had, I think it was 19 Republicans, senators, sign on to the bipartisan infrastructure bill because they know it benefits their corporate donors, including Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell was a yes vote on the infrastructure plan. So this is why, I mean, I've discussed countless times now, the budget reconciliation bill that Bernie's putting forward that only requires 51 votes. That is the one that has all the the benefits for the average person. So Medicare expansion, child tax benefit expansion, money for climate change, and various other provisions. So that's where the actual that's a bill that needs to get passed. But you have here Josh Hawley freaking out about the one that is actually pro-corporate. And again, it's all for performance. This is a guy that has no real principles. He tries to put himself out there as a populist, but doesn't actually fight for anything that is populist, does not fight for increasing wages, does not fight for expanding healthcare, doesn't fight for anything that's actually benefiting people. He's just a mouthpiece for the far right, and it's obvious from bullshit like this where he says nothing of substance for a minute and 14 seconds. But there you go. That is your wrap up for the week. All right. Fun. Now let me grab some of these chats. This is where the fun really starts. The people that start watching the stream and then jump off, you don't know what you're missing. The end of these streams are always the best part of these streams. All right, let me grab some chats first. Car Wash Freak says the Progressive Squad need to use leverage to get the budget bill from Senate no climate no vote. So they are using their leverage on the budget bill. They are that's why you have I think it was the New York Times said half of the Progressive Caucus, so 50 people potentially, are not going to vote on the infrastructure bill unless the budget bill passes first. So the budget bill is the good one. The infrastructure bipartisan bill is the more privatized one. So they are right now essentially forcing the vote. That's what they're doing. And that's exactly what they should be doing. So let's see how it plays out. Pierre Proudhon says, I read something truly terrifying on a magazine. By the rate soil loss is happening right now, the most fertile, hold up, it's cutting you off. The most fertile soil will be useless in a few decades. At that time, we will run out of land to grow food. I gotta say, I know nothing at all about this conversation, so I can't really comment, but there are many, I'm sure this is due to climate change, correct? So there are many, potential impacts of the climate crisis that many different ways that humanity can essentially die by 1,000 cuts. But, that's why we got to deal with this shit as soon as possible. Climate Marcher John says, Katie, pull out the dreaded whiteboard and make them pay yes. Thank you, Climate Marcher. Yes, Katie and her whiteboard, quite fantastic. Danny F says, David, curious about your views on Afghanistan. No idea how I should feel about the news about it. So I haven't covered it because I have to admit I'm not an expert on the Middle East. So I feel like there are other people that are better suited to cover Afghanistan. But from my understanding, this was always going to happen. Like that's it didn't matter if they pulled out 10 years ago or 20 years in the future. The same thing was going to happen. So in terms of the Taliban taking over, and it's not the real impact of that is going to be on women's rights. As people hear Taliban and people that are older think back to like 9/11 and think they're all terrorists. In some ways you can say they are, but they're also really not all that different from like the Saudi regime. So you have people here who, yes, are incredibly at least socially conservative in terms of their approach to like women's rights, for example. So yeah, that sucks. At the same time, there's nothing that doesn't mean that the U.S. should police the world, that they should be in every country, invading everybody that isn't doing things right. At some point, you have to pull out of there. And they've been in there way too long. Someone posted a video today. I think it was Jordan Ewell posted a video of George Bush on I think it was December 11th, basically claiming victory in Afghanistan. and then he cuts to a video from today, from 20 years later, and how there's Taliban are taking over Afghanistan. It really is. It's almost comical how this issue has been dealt with and covered over the past 20 years. If the U.S. had pulled out earlier, when the Taliban were more willing to give in and negotiate, then you may be, or the Afghanistan may potentially be in a different situation right now if that happened, if that pullout happened much earlier, but it didn't. So it's, unfortunate in some ways, but at the same time, it's not surprising. This was always expected to happen, even if people claimed otherwise. All right. Let me grab some other chats here. SM says, David, did you talk about that QAnon guy who killed his kids? Too depressing for me to cover. I mean, I would say that isn't even, yes, it's about QAnon, but if QAnon didn't exist, I think somebody like that would latch on to something else. Like, it's these ideas, these theories, these conspiracy theories are always going to be out there. It's just a matter of how it impacts you. So yeah, that guy, I think, clearly had other stuff going on. It's not like it was some normal person who just read about QAnon and then killed his kids. I think there's more to the story than just that. But yeah, very disturbing. Violet says, I thought that privatization element was removed last week. I hadn't heard that. Something in there that may have been in there before may have been removed, but I mean, when you have 19 Republicans sign on, I think that tells you something. You're not going to have 19 Republicans sign on with an infrastructure bill that is only for the public good. There's clearly some underlying goodies there for corporations. All right. It's easier for me to, if you want to like ask me a question or comment, tag me in it. Tag the Rational National in your comment. It's easier for me to see it because there's just a wall of text right now. Winston says, did you see Canada Conservative ad portraying Canadian Liberals as Oompa Loompas from Willy Wonka? Yes, I did. In fact, I was almost going to cover that, but I can't because of copyright issues. But because it's a scene from that movie, so it's so stupid. If that's how the Conservatives are going to campaign, it's only going to help the Liberals. But I did see, actually, yes, if I can find it, I saw a good ad from the not from the Conservatives. I saw a good ad from Unifor against the Conservatives. Unifor is a large union in Canada. If I can find their ad, I'm going to play it for you because I thought it was pretty good. All right, I'm not going to find it. I'm searching their page now. They have like a wall of videos, and none of it appears to be what I'm looking for. Here it is. I found it. All right, this is good. I like this. I'll show you this.
The next.
Turn down the volume a little bit. Don't want to blow your ears out. So this is I'll just play it beside me. Here we go. Anyone watching later, if the music's cut out or if the audio's cut out, then that means the music was copyrighted and I had to cut it out. But otherwise, this should be fine. So this is an ad, again, from Unifor, which, again, union, who are basically against the Conservatives. They kind of, they're, at this point, I believe, largely supporting the Liberals, but also support the NDP. Check this out.
The next model of conservative is here. Meet the 2021 O'Toole, ready to steer Canada.
So in case you're not Canadian, O'Toole Erin O'Toole is the leader of the Conservative Party, so that's kind of the play on words here that they're doing.
Next model of conservative is here. Meet the 2021 O'Toole, ready to steer Canada in the wrong direction. Engineered by big corporations to leave us behind. Driven to cut healthcare and public services, just like Jason Kenney. Another out-of-touch politician at a price we can't afford. Meet the 2021 O'Toole. New name, same old conservative.
I think that's pretty good. It's kind of like, it's obviously a take on a truck commercial. But that's really well done. It's creative. It gets the point across. Mentions how the conservatives are backing, are largely influenced by large corporations and the wealthy. I think that's a pretty good ad. But yeah. All right. Let's get to some other stuff. Corvus, yes, tagging works. I see it in orange. You may not see it, but I see it. So, your tag worked. Drippy says, do you think we could potentially see Justice Dem/DSA candidates start to sneak seats from usually safe establishment candidates soon? Well, they already have. I mean, you had AOC take down Joe Crowley. Joe Crowley was next in line behind Pelosi to be speaker. So she took down a giant. Cori Bush took down Lacey Clay. Lacey Clay was part of a dynasty. His father had the seat before him, and I think Lacey Clay had been there for, I think, over 10 years, maybe 20 years. But his father had it before, so Cori Bush took down that giant as well. I was gonna say monster, but yeah, sure, monster giant. Who else? Jamal Bowman took down Elliot Engel, a prominent member of the Democratic Party. So, yeah, no, they have been doing it. I hope they continue doing it. The issue is, there's only a limited amount of resources and money. And that's always going to be an issue on the left. It's never an issue on the right. I mean, people try to make the comparison of the Justice Dems to the Tea Party to try and criticize the Justice Democrats. The Tea Party had unlimited billionaire money behind them. They had like 60 members to start with. You can't compare the two. So you have like, I don't know, what is it? 8, maybe? Justice Dems in the House? I don't think it's many more than that. Or if it's even that. So the power is obviously very different. There's no unlimited money behind them because the nature of left-wing politics, we're not backed by billionaires and corporations. So it's just it's a poor comparison to compare the Justice Dems to the Tea Party. At the same time, I guess the only way the comparison works is how you want to see them use their power. But they can only do that if they have the numbers. And they are doing that right now with the budget bill, so it's working. But you can't necessarily do that with everything. And also, the other issue is that the Tea Party's goal was basically obstruction. So they didn't care about any progress at all, about passing anything. The issue that the left always has to contend with is that we still want progress. It's not about obstruction. So, I mean, if the left just wanted to obstruct, that'd be very easy. Yes, don't sign on to anything, don't vote for any bill. Really easy to obstruct. But they want progress. You want, to expand healthcare. You want to raise wages. You want to increase taxes on the wealthy. These all take the work in actually passing legislation. You can't do that without the numbers on your side, without the moderates voting with you. So, yeah, comparing the two sides, I just don't think makes any sense at all. But to get back to your question, yes, I do think that the left will continue primarying these more establishment candidates. Typical Canadian says you should do an interview with NDP candidate Avi Lewis. Good guy. He's got media background experience and is married to Naomi Klein. The Serfs had him on the other week. Well, funny you mentioned that because potentially I will have him on in the future. I've talked to somebody I forget who it was now. Talked to somebody that is connected to him, and I may in fact have him on. So look for that. Brandon Hale says, "What do you want as the next Smash Bros. Character?" I gotta say, I haven't played Smash Bros. In a while. I have it on Switch. I didn't get back into it the way I was into it on the N64 and GameCube. I don't know. I need some options. I need to maybe. Hey, how about the Joker from Persona? Is he a character yet? That sounds like a pretty good bet. Get Joker in there. Why not? I mean, by the way, I beat Persona 5 this week. Figured I should mention that for anyone following my saga with Persona 5. Started that game back in November. It took 110 hours to beat the game. The longest game I have ever played in terms of single player. The most time I've spent on a single player game by far. I enjoyed it, but it could have been half the time, and I would have enjoyed it likely even more. So, is Joker in Smash Brothers? For real? Did I miss that? No way. Wow, look at me. I should design games. He's in the game. I gotta get back into Smash Brothers. All right. Damn, who hasn't been announced? They have like every character in the game now. I don't know. Who's left? What haven't we touched on? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I need to hear some suggestions because I don't know who they could add. Crash Bandicoot would be good, actually. Yes, he's a third-party character now, right? So they could probably nab that. I don't see why not. So yes, that's my answer. Crash Bandicoot. Thank you to Celeste. Thank you, Celeste, for your donation. Longtime supporters, Celeste. All right, back to these comments. Corvus says, any opinion on getting Jim Jordan out of office? I'm so embarrassed that he's my rep. He's definitely does not represent me. The gerrymandered duck needs redrawn badly. I don't know. I don't know the state of his is he running for re-election? I don't know why I thought he was leaving. Looking this up. But yes, he's obviously a disaster. Oh, he's just not running for Senate. Okay, that's why I thought he was going to be out. I see. Yeah, I don't know. At the very least, Rob Portman is going to be out. Then again, he may be replaced by another Republican, so may not be a benefit. Where is my chat? I'm losing everything. Here it is. Gaz asks me, are you a social democrat, socialist, communist, or anarchist, David? I was asked this question like an hour ago, or 30 minutes ago. I don't really have a label for myself because I don't look the way so as I discussed earlier, I guess you could say I'm a social democrat because that's how I sort of cover the news, because I look at what's possible now. And if we're moving left, then that's sort of the next step, is actual true social democracy. But I don't know. Like I always include Marxist criticisms of capitalism in a lot of my coverage. That said, to call myself a socialist or a communist, I don't think is all that accurate, as I don't really focus on that. Again, I'm more of an educator is how I view myself. I'm a news educator. So I look at the news, look at a way to discuss it, and break it down for the average the average person, and how it applies to the average working class individual. That's kind of that's how I view my content. So, when it comes to labels and that discussion, I don't find it all that interesting for me, for what I do. I like that other people do that, and that's their thing, but that's not really what I do. Typical Canadian says predictions on what the top 3 election issues will be for Canada's election. Number 1, COVID. Number 2, economy, I guess. And number 3, healthcare, if that's not already tied in with COVID. But yeah, I know economy is like, a very large descriptor for a bunch of other topics. But that, I think COVID is still the number 1 issue. So that's going to be, I think, the top of it. Especially the way the Liberals are going to try and frame this election. I think they will frame it from COVID, and look at the vaccination rate, look how well Canada is in terms of vaccines compared to other countries. That's the best framing for them. The best framing for, say, the NDP is to look at how they influenced the Liberals early on in the pandemic, pushing them to support something like the CERB, the 2,000 a month, and other provisions or other bills that came through that was influenced by the NDP. I think it'd be smart of them to, attach themselves to that, while also saying they didn't go far enough, while saying they asked for more and that we should do this, and focus on the power of large corporations, focus on the immense wealth that should be taxed. And the NDP now have lowered their the bar for the wealth tax. It used to be 1% on 20 million. Now it's down to 1% on 10 million, which many argue, I think correctly, that it's not even near enough. But at least they're moving in the right direction on that, and they need to make that part of the discussion as well. Climate change, if it were up to me, yes, climate change would be in the top 3. I just don't know if that's how it's going to be covered. But yeah. I mean, the way I would like to see this election is climate change, number 1, is the focus. Number 3, maybe COVID. Number 2, immense wealth or economy generally. I have no opinion anymore on force the vote. I mean, how are people still? It's August. That discussion was January. If you want my opinion on force the vote, go back, search my channel. You can go to the channel, and there's a search bar on the channel. Search force the vote. You will find my opinion on force the vote back when it mattered in January. It's August. It's August. Unless you want to apply that label to how progressives now in the House are forcing the votes on the budget reconciliation bill, which they are, to ensure that gets passed before the bipartisan infrastructure bill gets passed. So they are using that very strategy in a more, I would say, clearly more strategic way to actually get real benefits, as opposed to a losing vote on Medicare for all, which, as Noam Chomsky said, would be pointless. So, you know, at the time, if you watch my video on Force the Vote in January, I said I was not against it, because there was like the aim of it at the time was more of a media play. It was an attempt here to try and get the media to cover that Democrats are, and Republicans, of course, voting down Medicare for all during a pandemic. That was the aim of it. But it wouldn't have worked, looking back now, it wouldn't have worked because at the time, people were then getting vaccinated. COVID rates were coming down. The whole healthcare play to the media wouldn't be as effective because of that. And at the end of the day, it's not passing. And you can see the co-sponsor, the two co-sponsors, Medicare for all, it's already out there. Ultimately, I don't know the point of it. If you want to force the vote, do it the way they're doing it right now. To pass budget reconciliation, to expand Medicare, to expand the child tax credit, to put money into the climate crisis. So, you know, everything in that budget reconciliation bill, I broke it down earlier. There's a lot in it that is fantastic, that would actually help people. But yeah, I mean, it's funny to see that people are still talking about this thing that happened in January. That was never really a good idea to begin with. Like, it's all about how you use the vote, right? Like, nothing's wrong with forcing the vote in general is a good idea in the right circumstance. But if you're forcing it to get a losing vote on Medicare for all, is that really the best use of that strategy? I don't think so. All right, scrolling back up in case I missed some other stuff. Oh, I did miss this. Blue Knight says, you into any anime/manga, David? If so, do you have a top 5? It's not my world. I can say I appreciate it, but I just don't, no. I never super got into it. Yeah. I gotta say that anytime I've ever watched like a movie from like an anime movie, like the ones that are there's like a couple I've seen that are really well reviewed. There's one that was super depressing. It was about like Japan and the war. Let's see if I can find it. That was a really good movie, and I mean, I just absolutely Grave of the Fireflies, great movie. But yeah, in terms of, yeah, I'm not into anime. Black Caucus says Vosh and David need to tag team Vanguard and debate with logic and facts. Honestly, I think Vosh could do that on his own. I mean, there really is. Thinking about it, I don't think anybody. Yeah, that's not fair. Sam Cedar, I think, is a pretty good debater too. Yeah, Sam Cedar and Vosh, I think, are the two that are clearly the most talented at debating, but not even just that. Also have, you know, the knowledge and the ability to access knowledge during high pressure situations. That requires skill, dedication, talent. Celeste says, do you like Harry Potter? My girlfriend does. I've never seen a Harry Potter movie or read a Harry Potter book. I'm not saying that to brag or anything. I'm just saying I know nothing about Harry Potter. Nothing. Just, what I've seen from popular culture in terms of references and stuff, but I don't know shit. Black Hawk says, did you watch the Steven Crowder Nightmare animation from the Amon guy? Yes, I did. My God, that was so good. You know when you watch something and you're jealous of that person's skills? That was me watching that. I'm like, I wish I could animate. I wish I could be that brilliant and artistic. It was so well done. All right, I'll get off here maybe in 5 minutes. So I'll just scanning here for some more chats, and then I'll jump off. I'm not married. No, I'm engaged, but I don't like the word fiance, so I just say girlfriend or part. In fact, I think partner makes more sense. I should say partner. The word fiance is just weird to me. I don't like that word. But I am engaged, so my engaged partner. Maybe I could say that. Black Caucus just beat Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I beat that a few weeks ago, actually. I played through all the Tomb Raiders over the past year. I mean, not all of them. All the three newer ones. Yeah, good game. Did you watch Biodome? Yes. Is that the one with I'm not good with names. See, this is why I can't I could never debate anybody because I forget names of things in the moment. Biodome movie. Yes, it is. What's that guy's name? Someone's gonna put in the chat right now. I'm looking at the movie. Pauly Shore. Yeah, I watched Biodome. I don't know why you asked that question, but yes, I've seen Biodome. I don't know if I liked it. I mean, I watched it when it came out. It came out in 96. So I watched it like when it came out in video, so like 97. I don't recall much. What I did learn recently, though, I learned this year that Pauly Shore's mom ran the Comedy Store. Mitzi Shore in Hollywood. I had no idea that Pauly Shore's mom ran the Comedy Store. Then I watched that documentary on the Comedy Store on was it Showtime? Whatever it was. It's a good documentary. Apparently Destiny's in Toronto. Is he coming here to campaign for Justin Trudeau? I don't know why he'd be here. We did just open up the border again to visitors that are fully vaxxed. So must be some reason he's here. M says, can I come to the wedding? Sorry, no. It's going to be a very small wedding. We don't want to have like a crazy wedding. Jason says Halo Infinite will be amazing. I hope so. I am looking forward to it. Been playing some Halo 5 for the first time since I haven't had an Xbox in a generation. And really dig the online. I'm a Halo Online gamer from way back. Does your baby watch the weird Canadian kids shows? I don't know what you're referring to, but no. Actually, we try to. For now, we're trying to keep him away from like, cartoons and shit. Expose him to like real life. I know there's some literature out there that discusses how kids should be try to expose them more to like, real people's faces and that kind of stuff before you introduce, kid shows. So as like a young baby, I think when they're, early on developing, you really want to ensure they're growing up in reality before you start introducing like other shit. Cynthia says, trying to fix a corrupt system by voting is just changing lipstick colors on a pig. I partly agree. I think you can't just focus on voting. The real change happens in movements that pushes politics forward, pushes the narrative forward, pushes the media to cover certain things that then forces the politicians to cover those things and to change their positions on issues. So, yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying. Especially if you're in a system like in Canada or America where it's first past the post and it's mainly between two different parties and, two parties that are largely serving the existing power, large corporations, the wealthy. So you really have to, it's important to understand that the power of movements and unions as well and worker power to influence changes in society. Dev says, live stream your gaming. Well, I don't know what I'm doing with my Twitch channel. They took me off partner for no reason. They claimed I was streaming somewhere else. I didn't. So now I hate Twitch and I don't want to go back there ever again. So if I stream gaming, it would be on YouTube, but then that may confuse my other audience. The vast majority of my audience that I think wouldn't care at all about that and may actually hurt me in the end. So I don't know. And when it comes to certain games, like right now, this week I started, after beating Persona 5, I started Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I never played the original, so I'm hopefully in for a treat. Completely new to me. I was never into JRPGs as a kid, so I missed a lot. But playing that game, I don't think people would really find me entertaining playing a video game. Like, I want to sit there in silence just playing the game. So if I feel like I have to talk to people and chat and entertain, it's just going to take away from my enjoyment of the game. Certain games are different. Like certain games are more spectator sports. Like Fall Guys, for example, or like Rocket League. I don't mind playing that on stream. But when it comes to deep single player like RPGs, I don't know if I would really enjoy the game as much if I'm trying to entertain an audience or feel like I have to entertain an audience. LD says, I hope you'll play Ghost of Tsushima. It's pretty good, David. I platinumed that game. Thank you very much. I have a platinum on that game. It is my favorite. Did it come out this year or last year? Whenever it came out, it's my favorite game of that year. Either this year or last year. And I will be getting the expansion on PS5. They have a new island. Absolutely picking that up. What a great... Sucker Punch is a great studio. I played through all the Sly games. Also have a platinum on most of those games as well. Sucker Punch, one of the greatest studios. So yeah, absolutely playing that game again. I gotta say, I'm liking how many of you are gamers. That's really cool. I appreciate that. Enshay says, live stream grocery shopping. I hate grocery shopping. You know what? Live streaming it may make it more enjoyable. I hate it. I mean, I mostly hate it because of COVID, and because I live in a apartment, so I can't just, in like a busy area, I can't just drive my car and get groceries. So I end up, walking there, and that becomes the whole thing. And you can only bring so much back. Then you got to take it up the elevator. I grew up in a suburb, so I'm not used to the city living as much as some people may be. So certain things are, especially with a child who needs like formula, a box of formula that's like 10 pounds. Grocery shopping sucks. Do you have Nintendo Switch? Asks Ashley. Yes, I do. Aquarius Dragon says, I like board games. I do as well. I'm not one of those board game aficionados, but I enjoy playing board games when given the opportunity. But have not played one in a while because of the pandemic. Winston asks, did you ever beat Resident Evil Village off stream? No, I got to a really scary part and I stopped playing. I'll get back to it for sure. I played a bit this week, but I'll probably wait till I beat Final Fantasy before going back to it again. But I don't know. I enjoy it. It's just one of those things where when I'm playing it and I reach a scary part, it's like, why am I playing a game to have anxiety? Like, I have enough anxiety in my general life. Do I need to really introduce new types of anxiety while I'm supposed to be enjoying myself? It doesn't, I never really got that part, especially when it comes to horror movies. I've never been into horror movies. And it's because real life already is anxiety filled. Why do I want to force myself through more anxiety in my free time? iGrock says they're a new member. Great. Thank you for becoming a new member. Much appreciated, Grok. I'm seeing a lot of religious talk randomly in the chat, and I don't know where to start with that conversation. I don't know who brought it up or what. I'm very confused. Mike Walker says, maybe this is where it starts. Dragon, to be Christian, you have to be pro-slavery and other horrible acts. That is not good now, is it? I'm going to have to disagree with you, Mike. I am not religious. I'll make that clear. I grew up Catholic. I don't consider myself Catholic or religious at all anymore. But I know people who are religious that it depends how you view it, right? If you think that you have to believe everything in the book to be part of that religion, then yeah, of course, that's insane. But most religious people don't literally, don't literally believe what's in the book. They like there are people in my family who go to church every week and they have clear disagreements with what's in the Bible, often what's being told to them by the priest. So, but they feel generally good about going, and they enjoy going, and it helps them. They feel like that they're part of a community, and it works for them. So I don't think it makes sense to connect every religious person to every single horrible thing in the Bible. I don't agree with that at all. You can be religious and not have to believe the Bible, word for word. Like, look at Reverend Barber, who's, fighting for like Medicare for all, fighting to, expand voting rights, fighting for the average person. He's somebody who, like, that's how Christianity should be. The way that Reverend Barber preaches it, as doing what Jesus did in the Bible, like actually helping people, looking out for the sick and the needy, looking out for the poor. So, fighting against the establishment. So that's how, if taking the good parts of the Bible, that's how a religious person should live their lives. It's just the way it's been co-opted by the right to essentially turn it into fascism is really wild. Like I covered this week, you had Pat Robertson and their news guy discussing the budget reconciliation bill and discussing the quote-unquote horror stories, as they called it, in that bill, which is expanding Medicare, expanding the child benefit, helping the elderly. And here they are on the Christian Broadcasting Network talking about how those things are horrible. Helping people is horrible. Helping the elderly, horrible. Expanding healthcare, horrible. Helping children, horrible. So those people are insane. I don't know how you can advocate for the opposite of what Jesus did and then claim to be a Christian. Doesn't make sense to me. But that's how a lot of people view religion, and it's wild. Am I agnostic now? Basically, yeah. I do believe in a higher power, but based in science, and like in the sense that we are all connected. The Big Bang started all of this. We all come from the same place. I mean, stardust created all of us. So we are scientifically we are connected. And that's, my view on it. Like, I don't think there's some guy with a beard in the sky looking at us. I don't I don't think that's real. But there is a connectedness that we all have that I would, I guess, call spirituality, or I don't know what you want to call it. But yeah, this idea that we're all connected. We should all be in this together. We should all work together, fight for each other. That's what my beliefs are rooted in. Blue Knight says, please keep us updated on Final Fantasy VII. The original is my favorite RPG of all time. Well, right now I am 2 hours into it. I'm just starting to, it's still teaching me how to play the game. So I got to say right now, I'm kind of lost on some things. It gets a little, this is why I didn't play RPGs in the past. It's a very slow paced kind of game. It's not typically something I'm into, but I've kind of retrained myself to be a little more patient and force myself to learn these various systems and ways to upgrade your character, your weapons, and all that stuff. So I'm definitely getting into it. All right, I'll get off at 6. I know 20 minutes ago I said I get off in 5 minutes, but I'm always wrong. So I'll get off at 6 p.m. 4 more minutes. Yes, it's Friday the 13th. Speaking of horror movies. SM says Candyman, 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 Candyman. You don't know how much that terrified me as a child. Like, anytime I'd go into a washroom, I wouldn't even look at the mirror or in the room until the light was on. Just, in case my brain decided to want to repeat Candyman a bunch of times in the mirror. That fucked me up for a while. So you can see now why I was never into horror movies. Axel says, do you ever take a step back and think about what the long-term goal of humanity should be, or does your head just explode? I don't look at it in that sense. I just look at what is possible here and now. Like my goals are always progress. So progress in terms of freedoms, progress in terms of improving daily life for the average person. So allowing people the freedom to do as they please, that in terms of like a career path or how they view themselves contributing to society, that sort of freedom, while at the same time ensuring that we are expanding those freedoms for everybody, but also, looking at daily life and ensuring that your basic needs are taken care of. So roof over your head, you have food, you have, friends, family, relationships, everything that adds to human happiness and growth, ensuring that we set people up to be in the best position possible to live their best life. That's my focus, which is always ultimately here and now, and not really a long-term goal. And, it can be hard to look at long-term goals when we look at something like climate change and how they may fuck up everything. So it's really, I don't know. I'm focused on here and now, and how can we help people in the moment or in the short term to benefit them, either now or down the road in the short term. But just to be clear, while discussing short term, it also requires putting in place, whether it's laws or whatever it is, things that will be long term to be able to give people those freedoms, in the short term. I'm confusing myself now, but obviously when we're discussing short term happiness, I'm not talking about getting rich quick. I'm talking about long-term happiness for humanity as a whole. But what can we do now to ensure that happens as soon as possible? All right. I think it's time to go. This was great. 6 o'clock. And yeah, that was a nice long stream. There you go. 2 hours. Maybe too long. But I will see you all next week. Goodbye. Oh, I don't have a goodbye button. Here's my goodbye. Goodbye.